Welcome to Elizabeth's Chronicles. If you love true crime, consider subscribing. József Bási was born on November 26, 1932. He was born in the industrialized area of Hungary, during the ruling of Admiral Horthy. He was an illegitimate child, who never knew his father. He was rejected by other children, and even his teachers treated him differently. When József was 19, he fled his homeland, due to Soviet occupation, that brought forth communism. He first migrated to France, and married another Hungarian refugee, named Klára. In 1957 their son, Barna, was born. Their daughter, Azsi, was born in 1958. Not long after, József began drinking heavily, and was physically abusing his wife, Klára. The family moved to New York in early 1964. At the same time, József started physically abusing their son, Barna. This led to Klára fleeing with the children, to another state a few years later. József attempted to fix the marriage several times, but the damage was done. Klára filed for divorce after József, during a drunken rage, threw a cast-iron skillet at her. After the divorce, József moved to California, where he began working as a plumbing contractor. During this time he ran into Maria Virovax, who was the waitress at the Los Angeles restaurant, where immigrants frequently met. Maria was also a Hungarian immigrant, who escaped for the same reasons as József. Maria was born in southern Hungary. She suffered physical and mental abuse at the hands of her father. The two dated briefly, then married. Their daughter, Judith, was born on June 6, 1978. Judith was very small for her age. When she was 5 she appeared to be 3. When Judith turned 5, Maria began grooming her for acting. Maria's brother urged her not to waste her time, that it was too hard to be successful in acting. However, Maria didn't give up. She coached her daughter in posture, poise, and voice. By mere chance, members of a crew were shooting a commercial, at San Fernando Valley skating rink, and noticed 5-year-old Judith's skating. They wasted no time, and hired her for her first commercial, Donald Duck Orange Juice. This launched her career. She starred in 4 television movies, 6 big-screen films, over 72 commercials, 2 animated movies, and made several television guest appearances, including Punky Brewster. She appeared in Jaws 4, The Revenge. She did voiceovers for The Land Before Time, and All Dogs Go to Heaven. She also played in Fatal Vision, where she played Kimberly, the daughter murdered by Jeffrey MacDonald. Sadly, this foreshadowed her own future. Judith was earning an estimated $100,000 per year by her 4th grade school year. This income helped the family buy a ranch-style home, in Canoga Park, bordering the West Hills. After the family home was purchased, József became so paranoid that he had an iron fence with spikes built around their property. He rarely would speak to neighbors, and when he did he would keep the conversations short. While Judith's career in acting was growing, her father's abuse was escalating. He became more abusive, paranoid and jealous of his wife. He threatened on numerous occasions to murder his wife and child, then commit suicide. In December of 1986 Maria feared for her and her child's safety, so she reported his abuse to police. He had hit her in the face then choked her. The police found no signs of abuse. Eventually Maria dropped the charges. József stopped drinking, but the abuse did not stop. He continued threatening to kill, and abusing his wife and daughter. When Judith left to go film Jaws 4, The Revenge, in the Bahamas, her father threatened the child with a knife, telling her if she decided not to come back, he would cut her throat. Judith's agent, Ruth Hanson, witnessed her father tell her, "Remember what I told you before you left." The agent said that Judith was terrified, and started crying. He would often show Maria where he kept gas cans, and told her he intended to burn the house down if she left him. The abuse was having psychological effects on young Judith. She began pulling out her own eyelashes as well as her cat's whiskers. She also started gaining weight. When she was in a signing audition for All Dogs Go to Heaven, she broke down crying in front of her agent. Maria took her daughter to a child psychologist, who put in her findings that there was severe physical and emotional abuse, and contacted Child Protective Services. Friends of Judith said she would complain saying, "I'm afraid to go home. My daddy is miserable. My daddy is drunk every day, and I know he wants to kill my mother." When Maria assured the caseworker she was filing for divorce, the investigation was dropped. Maria had secretly rented an apartment at Regency Premier Apartments for her and her daughter in Panorama City. She would take her daughter there and spend daytime hours away from their abuser. However, even at the urging of her closest friends, she refused to leave the family home due to the money invested in it. Yosef was obsessed with cleanliness, so she stopped cleaning, hoping it would drive him out of the home. Yosef's oldest daughter, from a previous marriage, visited the home during this time, and described the home as a pigpen during those days. On Monday, July 25, 1988, Judith was last seen riding her bike early in the morning. Sometime later in the day, while napping in her bed, her father shot her in the head. Maria, hearing the gunshot, ran from her room, down the hall where she met her husband Yosef pointing a gun at her. He shot her as well. Yosef stayed in the home for the next 2 days, contemplating his next moves. He answered calls from various people, including Judith's agent, to which he told he was going to move out for good, that he just needed a little time to say goodbye to his little girl. On the end of the second day, he doused gasoline over the bodies of his wife and daughter, and set them on fire. He went into the garage, and shot himself in the head with a .32 caliber pistol. On July 28, 1988, the bodies were found by the police. A neighbor, Eunice Daly, stated that she called police at around 8:30 a.m. on July 27, after hearing a single gunshot. Judith Barsi's final acting was done in the movie, All Dogs Go to Heaven, which she did the voice of Anne-Marie. It was released in November of 1989. Don Bluth, the director, said Judith was absolutely astonishing. That she understood verbal directions, even for the most complex scenes. The closing credits song Love Survives, is in her memory. Judith and Maria were buried together, at Forest Lawn Memorial Park in adjoining plots, on August 9, 2009. No headstones were placed at their graves until 2004, when Nancy Kelly raised funds donated by fans. The location of Yosef's grave is unknown. Approximately 2 months after the deaths, CPS was scolded heavily by the County Advisory Panel, for dropping its investigation of the threats of violence against Maria and Judith Barsi. It was determined that social workers are overburdened, and that more money needs to be granted to social work. And that before a case is closed, the home should be visited, and the child interviewed. Bana, the son from Yosef's first marriage, followed in his father's footsteps, and became an alcoholic. He ended his life by jumping from a bridge, in Scottsdale, Arizona, in 1995. Aji, his daughter from the first marriage, was diagnosed with breast cancer in 1997. She went into remission, and became a radio talk show host, and authored several books. However, her cancer returned and she died in 2008. Kenneth Seguin was a software marketing executive in Holliston, Massachusetts. Kenneth started college at around 19 years old, as many other young men at that age do. However, at 20 years of age he was diagnosed with cancer. This led to many bouts of deep depression. Things improved and his cancer went into remission. He graduated and later married Mary Ann, and the couple had 2 beautiful children. First came Daniel, then Amy a couple of years later. Kenneth and Mary Ann started having marital issues in 1992 and his depression returned. He was having financial difficulties, and checks were starting to bounce. Things seemed to be improving when the couple purchased a new home, and moved in early in the month of April of 1992. However, the couple argued on April 28, 1992 over having more children, and the new home they just purchased. Mary Ann mentioned leaving him. On the afternoon of April 28, 1992, while his wife, Mary Ann, was out, Kenneth Seguin drugged his 2 children, 7-year-old Daniel and 5-year-old Amy, with sleeping pills, then put them into his car, and drove them to a deserted pond in Franklin, murdered them, then hid their bodies in the pond with brush and leaves. He returned home and bludgeoned his wife, Mary Ann, to death with an axe, while she lay asleep their bed. Her body was found the next day, floating in the Sudbury River, in Southborough. She had a deep injury to her left temple. An autopsy revealed her death was due to blunt force trauma to the head. He flipped the mattress, and threw a cover over the bed in attempts to hide the crime. He then called the children's schools to let them know the kids would be absent that day. On April 29, 2 fishermen discovered Kenneth Seguin with his neck, wrist, temple and ankle slashed, near the pond in Hopkinton. He was taken to the Bridgewater State Hospital, the Corrections Psychiatric Hospital, under suspicion of his wife's murder. After the discovery of his wife's body, police interviewed Mr. Seguin, who claimed that 2 men entered their home, and beat him, and bashed his wife over the head with an axe. He said that the men gave his children sleeping pills. Police, and the community, were desperate to locate the 2 missing children. All hope was lost when the children's bodies were discovered on May 2, 1992, at the Beaver Pond in Franklin. Daniel's body was underwater. Leaves and debris, and pond sludge was piled on top of the boy's body. His throat was slashed from ear to ear. Amy's body was not too far away from her brother's body. Her body was also piled down with debris, and an attempt to conceal her body was apparent. An autopsy revealed that her throat, wrists and arms were slashed. At trial, Seguin's lawyers argued that his apparent suicide attempt proved that his client was so psychotic at the time of the killings that he thought he was protecting his family by taking them with him to heaven. The prosecution countered that Seguin was aware of what he was doing, and murdered his family because he was afraid his wife was going to divorce him, and take the children with her. Defense witnesses testified that Seguin was a devoted family man before his untreated major depression deepened into psychosis. Prosecution had their own expert witnesses to counter this claim. The judge gave the jury an option of finding Seguin guilty of first or second-degree murder, or manslaughter, or acquitting him on the basis of insanity. In February 4, 1993, Kenneth Seguin was convicted of 3 counts of second-degree murder. He was sentenced to serve life in prison with the possibility of parole for the murder of his wife, followed by 2 concurrent life sentences, with the possibility of parole for the murder of his children. Jury foreman, Karen Lee Bold, spoke with reporters and said, "I don't think in any way that second degree was a compromise verdict." She went on to say, "I think that we were all in agreement that Mr. Seguin did have some mental impairment. And while that was not enough to find him not guilty by reason of insanity, it was also not enough to find him capable of perhaps premeditation, which would have led us to a verdict of murder in the first degree," she said. During appeal, the Supreme Judicial Court upheld his convictions. He petitioned the Supreme Court on an appeal, but it was denied in 1996. During a parole hearing in March of 2017, Kenneth Seguin admitted to killed his family, and apologized. He claims he planned to kill his family and himself, but failed. The parole board noted in their report that he expressed remorse. However, they felt he has not shown a level of rehabilitative progress that would make him being released compatible with the welfare of society. The board noted that he needs a longer period of positive institutional adjustment and programming. The board also noted that he lacked empathy, which is what led to the brutal murders of his wife and children. Kenneth Seguin will appear before the board again in 5 years to see if he has demonstrated enough improvement to be granted parole. Judith Barsi was a promising actress, with a promising career. One can only imagine where that career could have taken her, had she not been brutally murdered by her own father. Her father was a lifelong abusive man who terrorized his family regularly. It's unfortunate that Judith's mother couldn't just let go of the home, and move on. Material possessions are not worth your life. Kenneth Seguin's mental illness contributed to the murders of his family. However, he was found culpable because he knew what he was doing. Hopefully the parole board will not let him out for a very long time. That concludes this episode. If you enjoyed this video, consider subscribing. Keep your eye out for the next episode of Family Annihilators Who Predate Chris Watts. Thanks for watching.